it sounds as if you're building a case and an argument that it's the policies. You haven't necessarily identified any particular politician, but you're saying the policies of this particular platform are wholly incompatible with the Christian faith. Why is it that that seems to be something difficult for Black Christians to grasp? What do you think is the roadblock or the thing that stands in their way that keeps them from seeing that? Because it is as clear as day the way you articulate it. What do you think drives that cognitive dissonance that you talk about in your book?
Well, it happened in the civil rights movement. After Martin Luther King Jr. got killed, Black people had a very, very emotional attachment to him and the civil rights movement. And it was understandable because of the turmoil of that movement and how Martin Luther King Jr. was killed. But I had to deal with that. And it was the hardest part of the journey because like you and most Black people, Martin Luther King Jr. in my household was an icon. Right. I mean, his picture's hanging up in my father's house right now. And I had an Aunt Jenny. I talk about this in my documentary, Where You Go to Hell From Me. She lived in a house with no indoor plumbing and a wood heater. She had two pictures in that house, and one was Jesus Christ, and the other was Martin Luther King Jr. And I grew up in Haywood County, Tennessee. It was about 50 miles from where Dr. King got shot. So it was an ever-present, his life and his everything about him was ever-present in my home. But I was concerned when I saw the young Black man in 2018, Kaepernick and all of them kneeling, and I didn't understand what's wrong with them. And I was born on the cotton plantation, and my father was a sharecropper. Heck, and we weren't upset like these guys were. So I went to the Lorraine Motel when I was doing the research for my book, and they had Martin Luther King Jr. I Have a Dream speech looping. And, Dr. King really rocks this speech, man. I mean, he does this speech so well. And as they say, it's the greatest speech of the 20th century. But I heard Dr. King say something in his speech after I've seen the speech 1,000 times, but I heard him say something this time that I'd heard, but I had not put it into this context before, and it changed everything for me. It's like the great writer Thomas Wolfe said, you can see a thing 100 times before you see it once. Right. This happened to me. And I heard Martin Luther King Jr. say in this speech, he said, 100 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, the Negro is still not free. And I said, whoa, that's the poison pill. Why? Because that is a lie. I was born free. According to John Locke in his Second Treatise of Government, my freedom is an unalienable right given to me by God. An unalienable right is such a powerful right attached to you that it is irrevocable, non-transferable, and unsellable. You can't give it away. It's yours. Thomas Jefferson used this to explain to King George about the rights we Americans had. When King George said, I'm your sovereign, Jefferson, no, God is our sovereign. There's a higher power than you, King George. And King George said, I'll show you. No, we said, no, we'll show you. Come over here and let us show you. And we showed it. God was on our side. So King went back to D.C. and said that we come to Washington, D.C. to demand our unalienable rights. You don't demand your unalienable rights from the government. You defy the government to come try to take them from you like we did King George. Because when you give the government your unalienable rights, you make them God. And since that time, Black people have been marching, singing, and sweating, asking government to give to us something that only God can give us, something that we already have. And we have stayed, we did a flat line. We went backwards before that time, between 1940 and 1960. Do you know that before 1915, the Tuskegee Institute had created more Black millionaires than Harvard, Princeton, and Yale combined? I have that in Iron Triangle. We had shrunk our poverty rate from 80% to 30%. In 20 years, the greatest reduction in poverty in one generation in the history of the world. Even though we were getting 3 times less than white children in school. If you read Brown versus Board of Education, they could not prove that our children were getting a worse education than those white children was. Couldn't prove it. They only said that we felt inferior, but our education was some of the best in the world. And what do we want? Martin Luther King Jr. told us we needed to integrate with the Ku Klux Klan. Not with good Christian white folks that loved us, No, we need to integrate with George Wallace, Orville Favors, the Little Rock Nine, the Ku Klux Klan, the Red Shirts, the dirtiest white folks ever walked the face of this earth. And they turned our children to a pack of fools, into a school system that in 1962, in Ingalls versus Vitale, said that God is not welcome here, and we want to integrate with him anyway. No, it's ridiculous. Malcolm X said only a fool will allow his enemy to educate his children. And it wasn't like the Ku Klux Klan or George Wallace was lying to us. They said, we hate you. We hate your children. Send them to us, and we'll destroy them. And they did it.
That's what we did.
So Martin Luther King Jr. them started marching when Jesus Christ told me, if I've ordained something for you, no man can keep it from you. I'm a Christian. I'm an heir of Jesus Christ. I'm a child of God. There's no man superior to me. I'm a Christian. I'm an heir of Jesus Christ. I'm a child of God. I cannot be oppressed. Show me the white man that can oppress me. We'll put that to the test. You might not like me, that's fine. My job is to love you.
Amen.
You lie on me, I tell the truth on you. You misuse me, I treat you right. But that don't mean you got the right to put your hands on me. Martin Luther King Jr. walking around talking about, I'm dreaming about a day that my 4 little children won't be judged by the color of their skin. What's wrong with the color of my skin? Judge me by it. What you gonna judge? Underestimate me at your power. If you don't like me, that's your problem. You put your hands on me, you're gonna have another one. Walk around here asking white folks, begging, slobbering, letting them slap us around and treat us not like men. Jesus Christ was a man. They didn't put their hands on him until he said, my time has come.
Right.
Didn't touch it. But he told us, and this is where it comes from, April, he told us that we were supposed to allow these liberals into our churches. I know he didn't try to baptize them. He didn't try to save them. He let communists and atheists into the black church and turned the black church into the arm of the liberal Democrat Party.
Right.
And it completely took the black church away from its ecclesiastical purpose and told us that we were supposed to do what politics told us to do instead of God. And it changed our purpose, and we became suicide bombers, lapdogs for the Democratic Party, and that's all they want us to be. And there has not been one black preacher that's had the nerve to come up and tell the truth about it since, because they're all bought and paid for by the Democrat Party.
Wow.
And so when you look at the last of it, when I looked at Martin Luther King Jr., I had to deal with what Jesus Christ said. He asked his disciples, he said, how do you know a false prophet? And they said, and they all leaned in. He said, the same way you know a tree, by the fruit it bears. He said, you will not get bad fruit from a good tree or good fruit from a bad tree. Each tree and each fruit will have its own kind. If you look at the black community and you come to the determination that the fruit is bad, the tree that it came from had to be bad. And when you look at Martin Luther King Jr., when you start reading his writing, some of the stuff that Virgil Walker has come out with when he went to his papers at Stanford and come to find out the King wasn't even a Christian. Oh, they can get mad at me all they want to. I'm going to tell you the truth. If you can't handle it, that's your problem. Because you're caught up in your feelings like you always have been, like a child, instead of being a man. Learn the truth. I hurt your feelings. Fine, I hurt them again. Read it for yourself. Right. It says the King did not believe in the virgin birth. He did not believe in the resurrection. He didn't believe in hell. He didn't believe in the divinity of Christ. Right. Check out his papers at Stanford for yourself. Did you know that Martin Luther King Jr. was the first recipient of the Margaret Sanger Award? Yes. Helping her set up abortion clinics all through the black community with the Negro Project to kill black people. Yeah. And then when you look at the condition of black people, what do we celebrate? The fact that we're at the bottom of every socioeconomic statistic in America, the black church is turning apostate. There are more churches closing than are opening now. Right. The black community is in a dysfunction. Right. And nevertheless, these liberals put these jokers up in front of our face that these should be your hero. It's just like in Soviet Russia when they would put Stalin up in front of the Soviet Union all the time and the people starving to death. And they're telling them to celebrate and dance behind Lenin and Stalin. And the people sitting there about to die said, man, this ain't no fun. Right. I don't know what y'all telling us to celebrate. Black people doing the same thing. They always want to put these old, dried up civil rights icons in front of our face and say, y'all should be celebrating. Celebrating what? Detroit, Chicago, LA, Philly, Memphis. What we celebrating?
Atlanta.
The fact that we're at the bottom? Yeah. We celebrating the fact that we at the bottom. And you know why? Because we don't think we deserve any better. And that's a shame.